without wasting any more time, to pick brain of some of the country's finest architects and designers. I will, in that order, invite the ladies first. Archana, please come over. Archana Baid, practicing out of Bombay. Next is Viraj Patki. She's gone. I think we took too long. Behzad, I don't think with his recent additions he doesn't need any more introduction, but everybody has been seeing Behzad on social media. Piyush, Mehra, there he goes. Wherever, Subodh. So happy to have Subodh join us today. So that's about it. Yeah. So yeah, and I'm there. Yeah. I'm going to be. I'm here. So I think whenever we are going to be talking about the lifestyle of a project, as I said, it starts today from the inception, or even before the inception, as Ankur put it, when the client walks in. When the client walks in, this is where the project starts. Half the time, as Aparna said, it doesn't actually start. It remains on paper also. So we need to look at all the aspects of lifestyle of a project. I will start with Archana. So Archana, what is one single most important thing when you conceive a project, in the lifestyle of a project? I know that you do very, very high-end residences which are very demanding. How much of it is client and how much of it is you?
I think our role is, a plethora of experiences which are brought together, in the end to make an end product which is functional and aesthetic. We do understand design, but I think for us, we feel it's very important to understand people. While making houses, we have many members associated with it. It's not just a one-man show, a corporate deal. So that's important, and so that's why when we make our design choices, it's more considering the psychological point of view, And even after all this, I think every house does have a lifespan, which really depends on the, the quality of installation, the maintenance level, the weather conditions, as well as the intensity of its use. So there are too many factors which really decides the life cycle of a project. Yeah, that's about it.
So is it different genre of project that dictates and the entire approach to that? Behzad, you next. Knowing that you do design build projects, when you wear both the hats, you take away a lot of pain points, because the budget is yours, the specifications are yours. How do you handle that? Does that change the life cycle of a project? In the sense, I do understand now that there is a greater clarity in about how the project is conceived and how it's taken up to its logical end. That means finishing, and then Seb comes in and does those beautiful pictures, which he's done amazingly well. And do you think in your case, does it change a little in terms of your approach towards those projects?
I think for us it becomes more critical, in fact, because what happens is when you're doing consulting and sometimes you may have your own contractors, or sometimes the client recommends their own contractors, their own vendors, their own suppliers, etc., etc. What happens is that if in the worst case scenario, and that's what everybody plans for actually.
The worst case scenario.
What happens is that the blame game can shift from the architect to the vendor or to the contractor, etc. In our case, there's only one person to blame, right? So for us, it becomes much more critical.
How to get kudos? Let's keep the things bright.
So the reason why I'm saying this is because for that eventuality not to happen, what we've done compared to what we were doing, let's say, pre-COVID, is to implement a lot of process and to ensure that the quality sustains for a longer period of time. Because so I have given my team the end goal of a zero snag handover. Okay, the more the snag, the more difficult it is for us to recover our profitability. Okay, so so when you're doing turnkey, the responsibility, the sense of ownership to deliver to that level of finish, to deliver in time, to ensure that you're giving the right quality of product is extremely critical. When you say durability, when you say materiality, I think a lot of designers forget about safety. So for example, we use fire retardant products on all the wood that comes onto our site, or whether it is the wardrobes that are being built in the factory, or the smallest of detail. People even miss out on doing pest controlling, DPC, things like that. And when you hand over, you see moisture marks over skirtings, etc. So for us, the life cycle of a project needs to outlive, even for interiors, us is what we aspire for, we aim for. And we've gone to a very strong level where we have curated a 250-page fit-out manual for our in-house project managers and site supervisors with video tutorials. So for us, we've taken it very seriously. We were failing earlier, and we realized what our pain points were, and we realized that what the client actually aspires for. He aspires for a home that doesn't only look luxurious, but not only feels luxurious, but also spans over a longer period of time, because eventually, rich or middle class or poor, luxury is a definition which is an elevated state of being. And for that sense of well-being, and for that sense of elevated well-being, the product has to be well finished and has to live its life for a certain amount of time. And that is very critical for us.
Also, Vivek, I would just, since we're on this subject right now, and we're discussing design and build, it's also very important, also since we're discussing a lifestyle of a project, right, from the design, life cycle of the project, right from the inception to the delivery and beyond. So when you come as a design build person, how do you maintain the respect? You don't want to come in only as a contractor. You also have to kind of draw a line. Okay, I'm also the designer, so I don't want to hear from you. So how do you do that? Just wondering. Because
I think in the life cycle, first you're wearing the hat of a designer, and then that 250-page manual that Behzad has created will come into picture. All your intuitiveness of the designer will go out of the picture. But that's very interesting in the sense, I think we are setting processes in the frame. From Ankur's point of view, she'll be very happy that we are going online with what the entire idea of life cycle of a project was, because she was very fastidious in her idea that there is actually a life cycle of a project which needs, for the betterment of the project, needs to be taken up where you conceive, and that's why Mahindra is here, that when we are conceiving, this is what is happening right at the inception. Then other things are happening and finishing at steps, like I said. So Piyush, when you do those projects, what is one thing, that process that you're following, right from when the client is coming to you, are you designing for him or designing for your personal glory? And then what is the journey like?
So I think it has to be a balance, honestly. I don't like it so that I impose whatever I want to do on the client, because the client trusts us with all his money. A lot of people make their houses for the lifetime, for their lifetime. So you have to kind of design around the client's money. Also, as someone who likes doing architectural interiors, I like breaking my interiors into two parts. One is the space, the general architecture, and other is the soft interiors. Now, also discussing lifestyle of a life cycle of a project beyond getting built. It's lifestyle time right now. So as someone who likes doing architectural interiors, so I like designing the spaces, like the main chunk of the main big space, in a way that even if you change the soft furnishings over a period of time, maybe after 5 years, or maybe
also in the life cycle of the project, the next thing I think invariably that comes into picture is the budget. And the moment budget comes into picture, you've got to have per square foot cost. And per square foot means the entire area that needs to get covered in flooring. And that's where Subodh comes into picture. Now Subodh has material which is the country's one of the most exquisite material. Of course, he started coming out with this fantastic terrazzo and everything. Subodh, what is, you can cater from beautiful textures to amazing mind flooring and everything. But what do you think is your take on the architect specifying? Do you want them to specify the material, not looking at the usage? If somebody wants to put some kind of a textured stone even in the inside areas, which is bound to get, just because he fancies that or client fancies that. I know that you're doing all of that. Do you advise them correctly? Is it all right to use? We all know that Italian marble comes with its own inherent issues of cracks and fillers, and how do you besides business, right now you're wearing the hat of a contributor to the life cycle of a project. How do you do that?
No, now I think in last few years we are not wearing the hat of as a marble seller. Architect designers have started involving us in the early stage of the design, and they take us as a stone consultant and ask us what is the right stone. Whether it's for facade, they want to know which limestone is right or which travertino is good, depending on where the location is, whether it's near the seaside or it's in a dry area or a very monsoon area. So we do come in early stage, and we act like a consultant now, because with our 27 years of stone experience, we do understand a little bit about the stone. I mean, not that we are still genius, but and then it comes to, as you were asking about cost. Cost is not really the first thing which comes in private homes. It comes in the projects. A private home, when a family is making, they discuss the cost part too. First they ask the colors, designs and the stones on the availability, and then they come on narrowing down on the cost. They do filter out, okay, if it's too expensive, they limit those stones, but they still fancy to use them. But in a private home, generally the cost is not really the first criteria. On a project, yes, cost does come in a picture, and based on the cost and the longevity of the stone is decided and put on specification by a designer for the project to be not stopped at a certain stage when this time of stone procurement comes in.
Also, Vivek, I feel nowadays with so much exposure, even the clients know how things work and how materials are.
What I meant was, as a specifier, if, again, coming back to the life cycle, we spoke about perceiving, the client coming in, then the perception, you're designing. Thereafter, Behzad is talking about the manual that before you start construction, there's an estimate which is taken, and then you start construction, and then the specifiers are specifying and the material starts coming on the site. But during the process of that execution, Archana, what are the challenges that we face? You do homes. What is the expectation of a client? Everybody wants things as of yesterday. And with WhatsApp, in my time, good old days, you used to write letters. So you used to then started coming mails. And now, the day you are given a project, there's a WhatsApp group that's formed. And on that WhatsApp group, you're expected to deliver the drawings, show him Pinterest pictures, show him 3Ds and everything. So how do you handle that pressure?
I mean, I want to tell you that Pinterest and Instagram is overwhelming. When the client, overnight, in my sleep, I have 500 pictures. And right now, I'm doing 3 flats in a building which is 6,000 floor plate. And imagine all 3 families sending 500 different pictures. And we're trying to still create...
Sorry, I will interject. All of us also benefit out of that Pinterest.
No, agreed. I do have my saved folders.
We all slyly look into all of that for inspiration. That visual reference, I don't think we can take.
I do have my saved folders, but it's very hard when in the morning I get up and when I'm in the studio, my staff tells me, I mean, I have nothing left to do and say and give an offer to the client because I already have everything from them. I said, doesn't matter. So the whole idea here is because everyone follows a trend list in the end, yeah? So, I mean, trend in the end means what? It's something that's fun, new, something that you haven't seen before. But then the problem is that the trend becomes ubiquitous and, you get tired of seeing it. So, I mean, when I go to design, I would rather prefer taking something which has had a revisited classic history or a piece, which I know will be there for X number of years or for many years to go rather. So I think it is about, setting that apart and, still, so for me, I tell yes to my client for everything in the end. I start filtering out, so there's no trend business happening in the end. We take our conscious calls and, follow the design process.
That brings me to a very interesting twist to the whole thing in the sense, life cycle of an interior project is different from life cycle of an architectural project. The architectural project or the building is going to always outlast you, but interiors for different genre of interior, different kind of interior that you're going to be doing. I think if I was to design a restaurant, I will go with the premise that this is not for more than 3 years, because for a restaurant to do well, they would normally change their interior and the menu every 3 years to remain relevant. Similarly, but if you are doing the homes, people, at least in Bombay, are very, they want to change their look and feel. As Piyush said, that there are two aspects to it. The soft furnishing and the finishing can change, but the basic, this thing will remain the same. But when you're doing a public project like this convention center, the entire approach is different. There is public usage. There is going to be longevity of this. So is the approach different?
I think yes.
And I think this question is to everybody in their own manners. Whatever genre of work you do, you can answer on that.
Okay, so I think yes. I mean, the longevity, it depends on the materials that we are using. Whether it's architecture or interiors. I think for a commercial purpose, maybe, it's cost effective. Something like you said, for restaurants will come with a smaller shelf life. For a house, you want something at least, some years ago, we would see a shelf life of 10 to 15 years, which has come down to 5 years now. So I don't see any project, maybe the fixed, the built-in part is there for 5 years. And you try to make the spaces which can be more adaptable. You can move in the furniture, the upholstery can be changed, curtains can come down, and so it's made a little more adaptable to usage and can last for at least one generation, if not two.
So, as you rightly said, that every different style and also kind of project that you're doing demands a certain kind of materiality. So, it could be, as I said, it could be style-based or it could be function-based. So, if you're doing a restaurant, if you're doing a hotel, okay. Again, when you're doing a standalone lounge bar, it's different, and when you're doing a hotel, it's totally different again, because the lifespans are totally different for both. I think when we choose or when we decide on materiality to ensure that the life cycle of a project is met, is one most important thing is, as I said, it needs to meet the brief. Okay. 2 is it needs to meet its lifespan. Okay. And 3, obviously, it needs to meet within the cost parameters. If you honestly ask me, for example, we're doing a lounge bar for a previous client who we did OPA for, okay, which is Greek. It's all white. And we told the client that, if you're going to use white cement-based floors in the bathroom, it's not going to work. But it was the brief, it was the theme, and he was ready to accept that every 6 months he's going to have a recurring cost. I'm doing an Asian lounge bar now for him, and the cost is twice the cost of, for example, of the previous one. Okay, is because he wants to achieve a certain level of finesse and detail in design. Okay, and obviously his ROIs are based on certain figures. But when we're doing residences, okay, the ball game shifts completely. There is a variation and variable that keeps happening during the journey of designing and executing the project. And when that happens, okay, is where educating the client, okay, becomes something very important. Even sometimes when you choose materials, not all contractors are, requisite with the skill to execute. For example, large format tiles, okay, cutting them, making cutouts in them is a different skill set than actually doing normal tiles, for example, okay. And we have seen cases where my design team is enamored and selects the most fanciest of tiles, and eventually when they come, my execution team is breaking 4 tiles just to fix one tile, for example. So I think that process of learning, that is self-education and educating your client, okay, and awareness, okay, and choice and awareness of choice, that is very important when you are trying to build up the life cycle of a project.
Piyush?
So I would also like to harp on, since we're discussing life cycles of different genres of project, be it in architecture or in interior, is the amount of time you get to design it, or the amount of time the entire project takes. For example, I'm doing a lot of bungalows, holiday homes around Bombay. Now the typical trend is you have monsoons for 3-4 months here. So any simple, small 5,000 square foot bungalow project will take 2 years. Like from start to the design conception, and then the monsoon comes, nothing happens, and then you start building, and then there are of course challenges, the weather and everything, and then the interior starts. No one wants to start the interiors in monsoon. So that's the challenge that we face here, as compared to an office project, for example, where you were saying that the time you get is maybe 60 days, 90 days. That's the handover time. So imagine a 60-day handover project. How much time do you get as an architect to design? That's also very important.
That depends on the skill. An intuitive architect will do it better, but process driven. Yeah, that's, so on the material, Subodh, I am going to stick to you on talking to, but yes, of course, you can give your yarn. You have such a beautiful, well-appointed home.
Unfortunately,
I think one of the
Vivek,
envy of the entire...
the stone is a product where it's not considered for a 3-year or a 5-year
That's
shelf
true.
life.
Yes, of course.
It's bought keeping in mind it's going to be there for not forever. Okay, that's like
as a
a
finishing
monumental thing.
material yeah.
But a private home or a commercial establishments would at least look at 15-20 years of lifespan. Yeah.
So are there, with technology and everything that is coming into picture now, are there stone life enhancement things that you are also looking at, or you are only abrasing stone now?
No, there are 2 sides up here. When you buy a stone, there is a stone which comes with enhanced life, already a treatment done on it. Yes, there are a lot of processes which go into it, and the strength of the stone is made much better before it's delivered. And then there is a second part which is let's say, maintaining your floor for a longer life. So that's not where generally we come in, but there are processes available and there are agencies who are there. There are people who can restore your completely worn out stone and make it look like a young and a new, freshly done house. So it's easy to do it, but it's a time consuming thing.
Also, there's life cycle to this event today. I think that's coming to an end. But before, there is afterlife for interior, for materiality and everything. And it's very important. I think somewhere we spoke about interiors today are also changing into adaptive reuse in some of the areas in Fort. If you see in Bombay, what used to be silos can get converted into offices. What used to be offices are getting converted into art galleries. What used to be art galleries or museums getting converted into architectural offices. Like Puran has one here in Bombay. I think he's got a fantastic office. So, one important aspect that we can look at in the life cycle of a project is that, is there an adaptive reuse to that? and also what is afterlife of that material. Yesterday the Muse boys, the Muse Lab guys spoke about what they did at what is that Ahmedabad thing? What did it say? Sorry. Yeah, the Channapatta, the toys that they had made, and they'd already thought of that after they finished the installation, if it's going to go to the pit, instead of that, they distributed the entire toys to the NGOs, which distributed it to the school children. So in terms of afterlife for material also that we use, it's expensive material. Can that big chandelier, which this rich client has got bored of, can it get auctioned off? I was just telling them that in Delhi, few years back, it used to be a big deal to buy embassy furniture. When these embassies used to get bored and their furniture used to get worn out, they used to put it out in Chanakyapuri on the lawns and they used to auction it, man. And everybody used to take pride in buying that, saying that, oh, this is leather sofa, all of that. So do you see any afterlife for all these glitzy interiors that we do and adaptive reuse elsewhere?
As of now, I think I just see it passing from the first home to the second home and the third home, because usually the expensive, whether it's accessories or furniture or light pieces, I mean, the clients still want to retain because it comes with some value, some story with
Will you
it.
give a new look to the new house?
No, so that moves to the house too, the second home, and then we make the first home a brand new one. So I think it's still recycling within the family. If that's a possibility.
That's only when Behzad does a good job with 250-page manual that
If
he's
that's a
retained.
possibility,
That
yeah.
he will be retained. Otherwise, there will be Archana has done one, Piyush is doing the next one, or maybe now Behzad is doing all with.
It's not a roast session. I think with the advent of technology, especially like for example, a few years back we used to make wardrobes, beds, bedside tables on site. Now we've done everything off site. Okay, so when people say semi-modular, modular, etc., we're now looking at doing wall panelings off-site. Okay, I think with the advent of technology and process and a lot of technology coming into India, essentially, like I still believe we were still lagging behind when it comes to steel fabrication and stuff like that. But when it comes to woodwork, I think we have a plethora of factories that actually are now working towards this direction. So for us, it becomes so when we look at projects, we also look at timelines of delivery. The faster it is, it's better for us actually. So we look at a lot of elements on site, and even our BOQs are factored in as what is going to be made on site and what is going to get made in the factory. So we're trying to ensure that more things are getting made in the factory now slowly, so that not only does the execution cycle of a project reduce, but also tomorrow, for example, many a times there are clients who come to us that, we're not doing well and we'll have to sell the home. And we want to shift our furniture into a rented apartment. Or there are some clients who are falling short of space in their apartment and renting out a larger apartment and leasing out their current homes, and they're offsetting the rent essentially. So there is this trend that is happening now that we are also seeing. So what happens is that with this advent of technology, you can, like for example, earlier we used to remove wooden flooring and reuse it, take the furniture, take the chandeliers, take the architectural lights out, etc. So we're trying to, so whatever is fixed cannot be removed. Flooring is fixed, bathrooms are fixed, sanitary fittings are fixed, except your WC basin and taps can be removed, your diverters can't be removed, for example. So the dependency of having fixed items, okay, is going to reduce over a period of time. Technology will maybe take it to such an extent that probably even bathrooms are now dry fitted, etc., and can be removed. I think give India another 10 years and you will see the advent of technology happening all across all kinds of projects. And that itself will be a big win-win situation for designers and people like us who execute as well.
I hope you don't
Very well
bring
said.
in your manual how to reuse the marble. It would be a
Really well summarized, Behzad. I think, yeah, that's what you said is also the trend, and I was wondering, when people upscale themselves in terms of their habitats or what happens, and that's great, yes. Piyush?
Also, we can be creative at times. I mean, there have been cases when I'm removing a marble out of an existing flat and apartment, and then we end up using the marble to make small tables or other artifacts. We can be creative. We can, of course, use the wood. Say we have doors, if you want to replace the doors, and use the wood somewhere else. So that's the usual trend that we've been following of kind of a minimum wastage. Even the new materials that we get on site, let's say we end up ordering extra marble, and whatever is left, then we kind of use it, cut it in small patterns and use it for a feature.
So I think in the life cycle of project, we're talking about the processes. I think there are challenges that we face as designer architects, as builders also. And those are the pain points. I do not know if it's a right forum to discuss that amongst, because there's no takeaway from that per se. But we have to understand that the life cycle of a project undertakes all these issues. And the idea, I think, what Ankur wanted is that we should be able to educate people about in the life cycle of a project what are the issues that are there. So I think, Ankur, why don't you ask those questions and we could just quickly answer and then disperse. I think 7 o'clock post.
Thank you, Vivek ji. I think I know.
G is for Gupta. It's not our respect.
I think also what's interesting is that everyone has moved the life cycle to lifestyle, and I must say that the idea of all of us here is to create a lifestyle for our clients and for, I think all of us are providing these experiences and lifestyle. So it's perfectly fine when the life cycle becomes a lifestyle or vice versa. I think you'll have captured all the points. I feel that the idea of life cycle was about touching as many aspects that make the profession. Right from the spiritual sense that Aparna ji is also touched, to the life cycle, to the fact that we need to be sustainable. When you do talk about afterlife or the post-life cycle, somewhere, like Piyush was saying, Behzad, everyone is trying to say that yes, we are trying to be conscious, we're trying to be sustainable also as a professional and as our duty, because we need to save the environment. Yes, we have challenges. I think Behzad is going to sell his manual. Yeah, we're going to probably get it on Kindle or on Amazon very soon. It's the most wanted manual because yes, we do have a lot of grey hair with execution.
It leads to great collaborations.
No, and it is amazing because I feel somewhere architects have to eventually encapsulate their good processes into books, because we seem to get a lot of literature where it is about people and famous people and about stories about them. I mean, trust me, it's always been in my mind. Somewhere the architect needs to write a book and talk about it, share your experiences. Either it is best practices, best ways to, there's so much learning that learning, like even Kunal was saying, how would it pass on? And hence I feel very happy that, iDAC being a knowledge sharing platform, exchange of ideas and exchange of knowledge is the only way that we all grow and learn together. And hence we tried very hard to get an amalgamation of...
We have only half house full.
No, but I think Vivek ji, from morning what I saw, we are a rocking platform. We've overextended our time, and in order to be able to hold everyone's attention span for so long in a digital era, I hats off to the entire audience. Thank you so much, and to our speakers who are holding gravity right now. Even I was like worried. I said that everyone will just vacate if we land up extending in such a short time span everyone has. So thank you everyone. I think we've covered.
Just part of it.
Yes. We must, Subodh, who is sponsoring this entire event and keeping all of us happy with amazing marble. We need him to felicitate all the panelists on board. Danish, could you please guide this entire process?